Well, in part one of the Jonah Project, we saw that Jonah was honored by God and chosen for a very special mission to a capital city, a very important town, as recorded in the Bible. He not only turned down the invitation, but started running away to make sure that he was as far as possible from God's hand. But you cannot run away from God. That's what his word says also. So he was in the ship, and we can see that we may think that our individual decisions only affect us. But the book of Jonah shows that far from it, anything we decide to do has immediate and dire consequences sometimes. Immediately the boat sailed off and left the harbor. A very big storm came. The Lord sent a great wind on the sea. Such a violent storm arose that the ship threatened to break up. So it was not a small thing. So his decision, first of all, had consequences on the environment. The environment, the whole environment where he was disturbed and affected. The sea was in a roar. His decision also affected countless number of people. The only one that is recorded for us is the ship itself. The whole crew was there, trying to cope. They were sailors, they were used to the sea, but they couldn't master that one. They were struggling and struggling. The boat was getting worse, involved in a worse and worse situation. And what we are not told, but we know is true, obviously, was that that was not the only ship on the sea. So all the others roaming the seas at the point were also affected. Maybe people died. Ships sank. This was terrible. Just one man's disobedience. And what did he do? He didn't try to help. In fact, he went to sleep. He went in the innermost part of the boat and slept off. And I know some people that say when things happen, they say, "Oh, let me go to sleep." You can sleep, but when you get up, the situation you try to run away from will still be there. Sleep is not a solution. It's just like a temporary respite. And in fact, the others thought it was not normal for him to sleep. And it's funny that when we disobey God, the people that will remind us of our disobedience are the unbelievers. These people didn't know better. They had traditional religions, they had various gods as recorded in the book, and they realized that the situation was not normal. They perceived in their conscience that there was something abnormal because they knew the sea enough. So they started praying their various gods, begging them to help, to no avail, obviously, because their gods were not real gods. Eventually they noticed that Jonah was not there. They called him. "Come on, get up! Get up! Get up!" At that time they had already thrown everything the ship carried, all the cargo, overboard. So it was an economic total collapse and loss, just because of one man's disobedience. And then they called him and said, "How can you sleep?" Such a pertinent question. And it's addressed to each one of us. How can you sleep when things go bad in the world? How can we sleep? We belong to a God that never sleeps nor slumbers. When things go bad, we have to examine ourselves, because we are part of the crime and part of the solution. You may say, I have not killed anybody, I have not done this and that. Jonah was not a criminal in that sense, but he was in disobedience. We all fall to disobedience from time to time. We may not have done something bad, but we don't do something good, and then it's just the same. So we see that they try first to wake him up, tell him to pray, and they saw that he was not really concerned apparently. Then they decided to find out for themselves with their own means as people that didn't know God. And they cast lot to find out who was responsible for this calamity. And they found that it was Jonah. So they started asking him, tell us your story. And you see that by that time Jonah knew intimately that he was the cause of the whole trouble. So he confessed straight away, I am a Hebrew. I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. He knew. He knew. And they were terrified, obviously, because he was supposed to lead them into righteousness. Instead, he was now trying to cause their death. Something he never thought that would happen. And it's how the devil does. He will lie to you. He will try to, like I was saying, earlier, tries to groom you into do something, saying it will not be that serious. It's only your decision, your way, your choice, your body, your plan, your career. It's not a new trick. He did it for Adam and Eve. Said, just take one fruit. In fact, it's going to be fantastic. You'll be like God. You will know everything about evil and good. Instead, that decision threw them away from the plan of God. They lost the happiness, the joy they had. They lost the fellowship with God. And it's exactly what was happening to Jonah. He had no fellowship with God whatsoever. He was now under God's wrath. Because the same God that loves us is also a just judge. And he cannot tolerate evil. He cannot see evil. God said, happy, blessed are the pure in heart, because they will see God. So if our heart is not pure, we cannot see him. The solution is come back. Come back, brother. Come back, sister. So he told them that, yes, they knew already anyway that he was running away from the Lord, because he had already told them. But when he told them first, they didn't understand. He just said, I'm running away from God. They said, well, we all run away from one God or the other. They didn't realize that God was different. And the sea was getting rougher and rougher. So they asked him for a solution. They said, well, you are the cause. Tell us a solution, because we don't want to die. Now, suppose you were Jonah. You say, well, try to come back to harbor. I think I would have suggested that. Look like a good solution. He didn't say that. He knew that it was not possible. He knew God enough for that, and said, well, sacrifice me. That will be okay. I have to pay. I have to pay for my life. With my life. I've lost it. I've missed the thing. So just kill me, that's okay. But they didn't want to do that. They were really kind-hearted. They tried to row back. No way. Eventually, they threw him overboard. And we thank God that we don't need to be thrown overboard and to kill ourselves when we miss it. because Jesus has come. Jesus has now come and he paid it all for us. He died in our place. So if you miss it, if we are like Jonah, just come back to God and say, sorry. I'm very sorry, I missed it. I missed it. Please, God, forgive me. Wash me clean. Let me start again. And he will do it for you. Now, let's look for part 3. Shall we?